It was 2020. The world had slowed down, but inside her, everything was racing. The lockdown brought silence, but in that silence came a storm, loud questions, unsettling thoughts, and a creeping feeling of being lost. Who are you? The voice asked her. And what have you really done with your life? And just when the weight of it all was about to crush her, she found something, or rather, someone. She found God again. And in that most moment of reconnection, her true calling began to take shape. Today, she is here to help us recognize the signs of existential drift, learn how to avoid it, and step boldly into our true space where purpose lives and clarity reigns. So if you've ever asked yourself that question, is this all there is? This episode is really for you. Welcome to another insightful episode where we speak on faith, family, and the ideal social life of an individual of faith as they navigate through different phases of life to become victorious in the society that we live in today. My name is Akudo Udoka Nwokore, and you are watching Seasons with Akudo. So let's talk about identity, legacy, and what it really means to live with intention. And the question for today is, how do you rediscover your identity in a noisy world? My guest today takes us through a deep personal journey that began during the stillness of the COVID lockdown, a season where the world paused and the bigger question got louder. Who am I really? What have I done with my life? And what am I here for? So I will allow her to introduce herself. It's good to have you today, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you for honoring us with your presence.
Thank you.
So let's get to meet you. Who really are you?
Okay. There are several ways to answer that question.
Okay.
But I'll choose the generic one. My name is Oluchi Amaka Iseko, originally from Anambra State, married into Benue State.
Uh-oh.
Yes. I currently work as a health professional. I work with the Limi Hospitals as the Chief Operations Officer.
Okay.
Yeah, but my career in healthcare has spanned close to 16 years now.
All right.
Yes, and of course I have the certifications that go with that.
Yeah.
Yes, but in my very essence, I like to identify as a child of God. I feel like that is an identity that supersedes every other identity that I can ever lay hold to. So when someone introduces me or notices that I am a child of God and that person gives voice to that, I feel like I have lived out my true identity.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your profile is really rich.
Okay.
I want to be like you when I grow up.
Oh, really?
All right, so let's talk about that lockdown. You know, when the world stood still. You know, we couldn't have imagined that there would be a time like that in our lives and in our generation. All right, so what really happened? How did the question come up? How did you get to that point when you got to realize that life isn't really exactly what probably we think it is? You know, why am I really here? What got you to that point?
Okay, so thinking about it, really, I think before the COVID, before anything happened, maybe 2018, 2019, I really was, because now that I'm thinking about it, I really was out and about with a friend, introducing myself and what I felt life has really moved well for me, right? And so whilst I was having that conversation with that friend, she said something like, oh, so at the end of the day, what's like your own in it? And I was like, what do you mean what's like my own in it? I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I have kids, I'm building a legacy here. But it was after that conversation I realized that question didn't leave me. And I was like, where is that coming from?
Yeah.
So I pushed it aside and continued my life. And now again in 2019, that was when that restlessness actually started. Because I remember in 2019, I was kind of like having this discussion with my husband, really an argument, really. And during that conversation, I think we were talking about work. We work together, so we're talking about work. And at a time, I remember saying something like, a lot of the things I did and these things that I did. And he was like, well, not really you, the organization. I I corrected him. I was like, I did this and I did that and I did that. But I'm a deep thinker actually.
Yeah, okay.
So I accumulate thoughts.
Thoughts, okay.
Yeah. So
waiting for the day to be you bust out with it.
Exactly. So I was like, I did this and I did this and these are the things that he was like, no, not really you. Like you work in an organization. The organization did that and the organization did this. And it was an argument it passed on. And so the thing that happens mostly is that the work in the healthcare sector is fast-paced, is intensive. There's almost little room for you to be thinking, like in a split second things can happen. And I have lived that fast-paced life for maybe 10 years at this time. Then COVID happened. COVID was the first time it was just me and my thoughts and I. Like even when you are having a holiday, you are still kind of working because you have 4 days until you get back to work.
Yes, so you've already planned what to do with it.
We don't know when we are resuming. We're just at home until you are called.
Yeah.
And so I had time to play because the first few days you're like, woohoo, plenty time. You watch all your series, you do everything, and then after that there is still time. And then I read, and then there is still time. So I continued until a time came when I was paused. Now all these thoughts started coming. It came in as a small thought.
Yeah.
And then I was just playing around with it and saying, nothing. And then it continued. And then then there was a time that was all I could think about. What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, I have given you, like God was telling me, like, I have blessed you with so much, right? What's the difference between you and this other
regular
person
people? Yeah.
And then this question just came, like, you know how a noise continues increasing until it's deafening and then there's nothing else you can. I remember one day, I think we had COVID. Right? But we never got tested because the moment you get tested, then everybody's trying to move you to count and everything.
Yes.
But I think we had contacted COVID because myself and my husband, none of us could smell. None of us could, like, classic symptoms. So we just sent the kids that we were locked up or we quarantined ourselves by ourselves. So in that time, all I had to think about is, what are you doing? What are you doing? And it was like a swirl because I continued going down that hole until I felt I was useless. In fact, that's the answer to the question. Nothing. I'm doing absolutely nothing. I am useless. There is nothing to my life. And then that gave birth to the depression that came out of it. And that was where I was at that time. That was how it happened. Like, I can remember that it happened, but it happened until I would cry. I would make an attempt to pray, but the prayer was like, I'm useless now.
I can imagine.
I'm useless. There's nothing. Nothing.
Yes. So I think we've all been there at one point in our lives.
I can't call it prayer, but that was how it happened at that time.
Yeah, you know, COVID gave us, or many of us, or most of us, a reason to think deep. Some people passed away the time. Some people utilized the time to do one or two things. But I think most of the people that I have come across, you know, gave me this explanation that it gave them that opportunity to really think deep about their lives. You know, imagine the whole world is standing still.
Yeah.
The whole world is standing still. Nothing is moving. I mean, it was the best time for you to do a self-reflection. Yeah. So this takes me to the other question I wanted to ask, because you had mentioned, you know, a bit of doing this and that, hyperactive, you know, starting many things. Did you really start anything at that time?
So you can imagine, as soon as we jumped off COVID, I was like, look, me, hey, you haven't met. I already was doing my MBA then. Because of COVID, of course, everything.
You were doing it while the MBA. You were doing it during the COVID or before the COVID?
Before the COVID, I started doing that. Okay. Right, but during the COVID, we went on lockdown. So after this whole thought process, I said that was an MBA. There's so much to do. I'm not interested in an MBA, so I started other things. I started a business at that time. In fact, 2 businesses now that I think about it. I started so many things at that time.
After COVID?
Yes, as soon as the lockdown was up. Actually, COVID started 2019. Lockdown in Nigeria eased up maybe around July, August of 2020 for healthcare workers. Because the first is that government clamped down on hospitals. So eventually they brought out codes, approved some hospitals, then we could start going to work. So the work gave me structure. Like, that work is my life. So that sharp whatever kind of like put a pause on my life. So I started. But in resuming work, man, I was hot. But all of that were in answer to that original question, asking myself, like, Who are you? What are you? How will you be remembered at the end of this? Right? But those were not the correct responses now that
Exactly,
I know
because
better.
that takes me to the question I wanted to ask. You started a whole lot of things, business, this, that. Do you think that was actually the answer
So at that time,
to the question that you were asking yourself? What do you really stand for? Who are you really?
so at that time, what I was doing was I was furnishing the answer myself. Yeah. So I was like, okay. So since I'm not the one doing, let me now do the thing that I am the one doing. So, eventually,
okay.
in retrospect, I would come to realize that this was the equivalent of me manufacturing my own answer.
You just wanted to prove a point.
I can do it, right? So I started doing it. In fact, I closed up every little space I had in my life with something. It was a time I was doing 4 things at the same time. I was running 2 courses, I was running 2 businesses, my family was moving, but that, of course, didn't end.
Wasn't the answer.
Yeah, that wasn't the answer.
So you were busy chasing shadows, and you were busy chasing, let me say, vanity.
Vanity, because I was trying to
provide
my
So
answers.
at what point did you get to realize that this is not actually the answer to that fulfillment that I'm looking for, that purpose I'm supposed to live on?
So it was still in 2020. The lockdown was still on, but not serious anymore because we had started moving around. It was somewhere towards the end of 2020. I remember that evening because there was still some sort of lockdown. We're all still wearing face masks. And I was trying to pray. And then I remember in my prayer, I was just like, so God, why am I like this? Like, what's wrong with me? Why this discontent? Okay, so I was trying to pray the feeling of, I was like, if I am doing all of these things, then can you take away this feeling of dissatisfaction? It's like I'm not doing nothing. And another thing I felt during that time, all of a sudden, I started seeing people who I wanted to be like.
Okay.
Not in a good way, because at that time I think I was in my 30s, and then I would see some girl, some 20-something-year-old girl, as a CEO of something, like talking about her company, talking about what she was doing. I'm like, hey, me, I'm 30-something, like I am an old woman compared to this girl, and here she is. This is what we are talking about when we say somebody has done something. This is the direct order. Not this one that you're working somewhere. Yes, they pay this year. So what? I mean, that's. And so it was at that point I started saying, God, so why am I like this? Because from childhood, I have never identified as a covetous person.
Okay.
I have never identified as someone who plays into comparison. I knew something was wrong. I was having problems even in my home.
No, you haven't been able to place your hand on exactly.
Yeah. So one of those days I was praying and I was like, so what's wrong with me? Why have I not been able to sort this out? And it was like I heard God said, because you haven't asked me how to. And I remember feeling offended at that question. I pray every day. Like, my life is a whole series of communication. What do you mean? And God was like, I don't remember. Do you remember any time that you have clearly asked? I think that was when I stopped. In fact, I didn't continue that prayer. I said, okay, I'm going to come and ask you. Okay, so that was where I stopped. And then I came back on another time and I prayed about it and I kept praying about it. And I remember the answer didn't particularly come like, Oluchi, this is what to do. But then instead of these ladies that I was seeing, I started seeing another set of ladies, still me. But I started seeing a different category of people. So I think my eye opened.
Exactly.
And I started seeing something different.
Yes.
But they had been there, but I've been choosing the wrong people to look at.
Exactly.
And then I started seeing these ladies. The more I saw them, the more hungry I became, the more hungry for the word, the more hungry for prayer. I became ravenous at that period.
Okay, so how did that connection with God change the trajectory for you?
Oh, that was the point where everything changed.
Okay.
That was the point where, because when I would see this set of people, God would be like, but these people have been, and I'm like, I've not seen them before. I say, yeah, because he didn't ask. So it's like compared to that story,
and it's possible you've seen them, but they were not just the models you were looking for.
They didn't strike me. And so I started noticing their lives, two particular women came out to me at that time. One was Sarah Jakes.
Okay.
Yeah. Another one was Priscilla Shire.
Yeah.
These
Okay.
were women who, for Priscilla Shire, she was a woman who was not in ministry, was leading a normal life. Her ministry was born out of teaching her boys Bible study. She had 3 boys. She has 3 boys. I have 2 boys. Our boys were about the same age. And so I was like, these are ordinary people.
I think her mom just passed on a few years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while now. Yeah. And the lifestyle, the simplicity with which they were doing what they were doing, and they were making a mark. So as if God was telling me, like, look, anytime you are looking up to me, I have examples for you. Anytime you are trying to figure it out yourself, there will also be templates for you. And so I became like a wolf that season, 2021, 2022. There is nothing to read I didn't read. There is nothing to listen to I didn't listen to. I listened far and wide. I picked up old messages even of my pastor. Like that time I was just like a wealth of knowledge. Like the more I was reading, the more I was seeing, like, you have a lot more to read. There's so much to do.
Yeah.
And so I went into, so all those other things I was doing at that time, they all took back seat. And I had just started them. I had just started these businesses, but all of them, they were now like, okay, why this distraction? They now became distractions because it was as if I had seen the light. And with that, I can't say when it stopped, because there was a season of unrest, and that unrest could be seen by everybody around me. I was no longer the happy person at work. I was no longer the happy person with my family, with my kids. That discomfort, I became irritable, right? But I can't say when that stopped happening, but I know that in fact, there was a day somebody was like, "Hey, you look happier." I was like, I'm a happy person.
Yeah, like, sure, you have to profess that, exactly.
I am a happy person. Said, no, you look happier. And so I had to say, okay, thank you, and go back and think about that. But now I know that there was something that changed during that period.
Wow, awesome. I hope you have been learning 1 or 2 things from what we have been discussing, because it is one thing to want something, and it is another thing to know what God really wants for you. That is what we're trying to say. So you have to always find a way to go back, to trace back your steps, and then discover who you really are. Each and every one of us on earth, we all have one thing or the other that God has created. We have a purpose that we need to live with, so we have to find it. Sometimes God gives us an assignment. Some assignments come with prizes or costs to it. Some comes with heavy responsibilities. Sometimes you find yourself doing something that you've never thought you would do. And that takes me to the next question I'm going to ask Madam Oluchi. So, at what point did you realize what God wants you to do? In one word, what would you say that God said you should do? And how did you start living that purpose? How did you start living that out?
All right, so just about the time I felt like I was beginning to find my way, because it wasn't a one-time process. Like at a time, I knew that, this was what was wrong with me. So it was like a diagnosis.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what is wrong with you. Now the healing journey can begin. So I started kind of like finding my way back to God. I didn't get a clear direction, but somewhere maybe like 4 months, 5 months, and of course it's still a journey that is still happening, by the way. But sometime along the way, it felt like I had started. It feels like growing muscles, right?
Yeah.
Like when you start going to the gym.
Yeah.
So I started noticing that there were some things that would upset me. They didn't used to upset me again. I started noticing that there were areas that I didn't even know before that I was insecure in those areas.
Okay.
So I would come into circles, and something that would get at me, some comment from some lady. Do you understand?
I understand it.
And I would be like, well, on a normal day, that would upset me. But that's not upsetting me. So when I go back to pray, I'm like, I see what you're doing, Lord. I see where you are taking me. The
transformation is gradually taking place.
It's only when I go to do things that I couldn't do before, or when an event has happened and I'm fine. Like the way I'm fine scares me. I'm like, this is where you were going to. I see what you are doing. And so it was as if that was not enough. So what I started feeling God was telling me, like, now that you've been able to sort this out, I have so many women like you were. And I'm like, hey, babe, take it easy. Like, we haven't finished with me. Yeah, I'm still a work in progress. And throughout
But you know
that
the saying
period,
that he doesn't choose the qualified, he qualifies the chosen.
yeah,
Yeah, so he knows how to sharpen
sure,
his instrument.
sure,
He knows
sure,
how to equip you.
sure.
I just wanted to chip that in
Of
there.
course,
Yeah.
but I still had my arguments. I had still like me that when 4 or 5 people are gathered, I go mute. Like, I'm an introvert and I am a proud one at that. And I'm like, I don't want my feathers ruffled. When I come into a place, I want to be cute, collect. I want to be a complete mystery. And God was like, nah, that's not why I gave you all of that I gave you. And the first thing I felt like I was being asked to do was to go poke at the secure shield of insecure women. Because people think insecure people are kind of like exposed. But insecurity kind of helps you build a false shield around you.
Yeah.
So when I come into a place, some people build this shield with a loud personality. Some people build it with a mute personality. I'm on the mute camp, right? And so it was as if when I'm in a group of people, somebody is laughing to a joke and God is telling me that's insecurity laughing, right? Somebody is gisting and somebody is being loud. Somebody is arguing and God is telling me that's insecurity arguing. And I'm like, all right, let's mind our businesses here. And I'm like, no. You are going to be the first person to say hello. You are going to be the first person to reach out to the person. And sometimes when I'm doing that, I feel like, am I now condescending to now talk to someone who on a normal day I wouldn't? But God started walking me through that process. It was in that process really that I started having clarity towards my own vision. So my vision, it was not a one-time thing. It was like in obedience.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. In obedience.
So that's actually the right place to be.
Yeah, so it was like in obedience. So of course I had my few jams. I would walk up to somebody feeling all bold and confident. It was when I've already started talking with that person, I realized that I didn't prepare for this. I didn't have the words to say. And it's in front of that person, I'm like, okay, God, what do we say next? Like, all right, she has said this, so what do we say next? And right in front of you, like I'm speaking in tongues under my breath, and I'm coming out with words. It won't be until maybe 2 weeks later I'll get a feedback. Oh, thank you for reaching out to me in that occasion. Oh, thank you for those words. I'm like, oh, are they talking about, is it me they're talking about? So it was from there the actual work started. My work of clarity has been very intentional, long, right? So it was until God started telling me that, look, everything I'm doing with you, you are going to help me. You are going to be the mouth, the leg, the face, the smile, to do that for some other person. And so that was how the whole thing started.
So was that what led to the book that you wrote, The Woman and Her Seed?
The Woman and Her Seed. I don't think there's enough time in this world to talk about that.
Okay, but you can just give us a glimpse.
All right. So in course of all of this, I came in contact with Pastor Tino.
Oh, okay.
Through some divine circumstance.
The mentorship is mutual.
I came in contact with Pastor Tino. Now she took us, myself and some other women, we went on some trip. And during that time, we were like, oh, let's study the book of Eve. In that group, not during the trip, but that we had a WhatsApp group. She was like, oh, let's study the book of Eve. Okay. And I told you I had become a ravenous reader, like study, call my name. And so I opened and I started reading the book of Eve. And it was as if you could remove Eve and put Oluchidi and that story would work.
Wow.
I was like, me, of all the women in the Bible, Eve is not the one I want to associate. I mean, look at women. There's Esther, there's Jana.
You don't want to be the one that betrays.
How is it? And every time, it's as if someone is working on you. And every time I want to say, wait, God, like, go back. And so for me, the story of Eve, you know that discussion the serpent had with Eve, for me, that was the whispers I heard that became a seed that birthed the discontent.
Okay.
Right? But when a seed is birthed in you, it means that the soil of your heart is ready to receive that seed. So the serpent didn't do all the work. Like God started opening my eyes too. You see, You, Eve, you already had it somewhere in your mind that you were not enough. All it needed was for somebody to say, come, I can make you like God. If you knew that you were like God, that request will not hold any allure.
Okay.
It's because you were already feeling, I'm not that much. Then the offer to become more makes sense to you. I'm like, okay. So it was not the fault of the person who, because one thing that this thing does to you is that you feel it's everybody else's fault. You take little responsibility.
Yes.
And so God started working me through Eve. Her acceptance of the serpent's seed. Now that you have a seed in you that you are not working with, like it's not a good seed, you have cultured it. What are you going to do with it? Because the seed has birthed something. And God started showing me that even before the serpent spoke to Eve, she could have come to God with that, just like I did, right? And even after she had conceived, she at any point in time. And so God was telling me that at any point in time, like the day you wake up, that's morning for you. Anytime you decide, I'm done with these clothes made of leaves, I'm here. And so I started walking with Eve. It was as if I was beside her in the garden and I could tell her, look, there's nothing that has happened to you that's not happening to
another
anybody.
person. Yeah.
You are a lady like any other. You have desires, and honestly, if I start talking about the desires of the woman, I feel one of the reasons God had to pair her with a man and had to now submit her to a man was because of the power of the desire of a woman. I feel like there is no end. If a woman is to desire a thing without check, she can break the world. She can unmake the world.
True.
It's unimaginable what the power of the desires of a woman can do.
And how far it can push
and how
her.
far it
Yes,
can
I think
push her.
sometimes we underestimate what we carry. We underestimate the power that we have. We can underestimate the anointing that God has placed on us. So we keep thinking that we don't have it, and we keep comparing ourselves with the people that we think, we assume are better than us. But if only we can venture out, if only we can step out, if only we can make just one little effort and see how God magnifies our effort, we will be so shocked at that we can even pull down the wall of Jericho.
I'm telling you. And God started telling me, you see this desire, you see this force of nature, I put it there. There is so much she has to do. There's so much she has to birth. There is so much she has to control. There's so much pain involved in her mission. I put this there. Now, that thing I put there, the devil tries to exploit. If you would come to me with it, I will show you just what the plan is. And God took me back to 2020 and said, you see that discomfort? The person who spoke to you didn't put it there.
Yeah.
The person that had a discussion with you, I put it there. It was just waiting for a moment, and something had to discomfort you for you to realize that it was time.
Exactly.
So all this while that you were crying, those were the pains of childbirth, and you did the right thing coming to me with it.
Pains of childbirth.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And so I started recognizing those desires, because normally once I have a desire, like I say I want to do this thing, something in me says, is that not your vain imaginations? Is that not just like you have all these things that few people, it's not enough for you? Is it until you have the whole world? And God started walking me through that part, that every desire you have, the trick of the devil is to try to make you think that they generated from you. No, they didn't. No, I put it there. Come back to me and I'll show you exactly how to use it. And so I let myself free. I can desire anything in the world. When I sit down and I look at something, I don't see it as covetousness. I'm like, God, is that somewhere you are leading me? Is a yes or no answer. And if I feel a yes, without guilt, without doubt, I start running with it. And I strongly feel one of the things God is asking me to do is to help women embrace that desire. There is one in every woman. And like me, you look at your setup and say, no, I don't have the setup for people that do this.
Okay.
I didn't come from the family, or I don't have the platform of people that do it, and they shut that down. Meanwhile, that suggestion is a seed originally from God. What to do with it? Bring it to God. Let him impregnate it. Honestly, there is so much in every woman, in every Christian, and honestly, that's all I'm doing now.
So that's the truth that has helped you to kind of, that has helped you or formed part of the principles on how you now lead, coach, and mentor some of those women.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So eventually, I started from there, but eventually, I now using this principle now started asking, so what are my desires? Right? And I've always had this thing for leadership. Like anywhere I see 4 or 5 people gather and there's a misunderstanding, I say it's a leader problem. Okay? And when I see leaders, and when I say leaders, I don't mean government, or I don't mean positional leaders.
No, yeah.
Yeah? I mean people who are called to help people achieve their own
Destiny and purpose, yes.
And purpose. And so wherever I see people, in fact, I now call leadership out of people. Like, I see somebody who is just minding their business. They have the story that because of that story, they have covered themselves in some guilt, in some shame. They're like, no, who wants to hear? I don't even want to be associated with this. And I'm like, that very reason. There are people who, because you stand up and speak,
that's
actually
your call to action.
That's all I'm doing. That any opportunity, in fact, in my workplace, like everybody knows that. And then I came out of all sorts of pretense. You know how you're in the corporate and you're trying to be official, try not to
compromise.
Make it too Christian.
Okay, yeah.
No, we are way past compromise. Now, when we come to official meetings, everybody wants to be professional. Be professional. Be professional means don't bring religion into it.
Yes.
I broke that cage like the first thing I want to tell you is that I'm a Christian. So if you have an issue, and God has helped me, because I know not everybody has this opportunity or the position, but I didn't work this hard to get to this place to still try to adjust, right? What happens when you get to the top is that the need to adjust goes, but people are adjusting for you. So why would they adjust for me and then I am still adjusting for them?
Yeah.
I come to a place, I say, let's pray in Jesus' name. I tell a group of medical doctors, look, if you don't have the Spirit of God, you are going to touch the wrong person.
Yes.
You are going to have a medical legal issue. You are going to. There are things that the Spirit will tell you when you're coming out to work in the morning. It's the Spirit of God that will say that patient, leave that. And when I'm talking to them, initially some people are like, is it?
Are we here
did
for
we go to
Bible church?
To come and now start depending on spirits to treat patients, right? But when because you don't have a choice, that's the thing that leadership does for you. It keeps you in positions where you actually are able to say things and get away with it. And I'm exploiting that.
Yeah.
I am exploiting that. You can't sit in my room. You can't walk in my space and not know that there is a spirit in man. We are all spirits communicating to spirits, and it is that understanding that differentiates you. I have people who do wrong at work, and then when they come to me, they expect some reprimand, and I'm like, did you pray this morning? And they're looking at me, and I'm like, if you would spend some time praying before, you will get into less trouble. And so the influence is massive. And why I think everyone should get into a position of leadership. I run a company with
at least every Christian.
Yeah, every Christian
find themselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
I run a company. There are over 400 people in my team. That's my strength for now. You might have 10 people in your team. You might have 50 people in your team. But if we have, that's the real Christian influencer.
Yeah.
I think that's what God is asking me to do.
Not
just for me, but to call out everybody who is trying to be touched. You already made it. They can't demote you. Your results are already speaking for you. They can't, because of this, now pull out. You already have the numbers working for you. So open your mouth and tell them Jesus did it.
Yeah. So what we are saying in summary, from what she has said so far, is when you are a Christian and you find yourself in a place of authority, in a place where you have an opportunity to, influence people, don't go hiding yourself and saying, I'm a Christian. Because other people from other faiths are not hiding themselves. So why would you do that? So it is on you to use that position to influence people and bring people to Christ, because Christ is light. He is not darkness, he is light. And there is no one that comes to him that goes unrewarded. All round reward. So that is what we are saying. So I'm going to ask you the last question, which is for the women listening to you right now, because there are going to be a lot of women listening to you right now. What is that word that you have for them? What is it that you want to leave with them? What you want them? How do you want them to? Because a lot of women are depressed. A lot of women are under the blanket. A lot of them are going through things and they don't have that boldness. And not some of them knows how to listen. Because God is always speaking, but the truth is that we're not listening. And sometimes we get overwhelmed with what surrounds us or the things that we are going through. Because as I'm speaking to you, I'm speaking to myself as well. Sometimes we get overwhelmed. There are some times that you don't even know how to start breaking that chain or that wall. All right, so how do you what is your one word for them? What is that thing you're living with? How do you guide them to listen, to learn to sometimes shut down the noise? The word can be very noisy. Shut down the word and keep calm and listen. How do you listen, and how do they know that they are really hearing from God? Because sometimes they'll be, okay, I'm listening, I'm not hearing anything. How do they know? Because you went back to God. You went back to stay in prayer, in the place of prayer, and then you started asking God, what is it? Because you were not finding the contentment after you have done all said and done, and nothing has happened. You heard. How do you get them to listen? How do you get them to hear?
Thank you so very much for that question. That question is inspired, because just today I was praying midday about today, and as I was praying, I was hearing God tell me things. And then something said, how do you know this is God that is speaking and not you? And something said, just by being around him for a long time, you have been able to tell his voice apart. I remember this story. I heard it again, but it was a story that I had an experience with. When I was young, my mom used to do this thing like, if she has two girls and she believes, okay, there's this traditional thing that you bequeath, the mother who is the matriarch bequeaths gifts to the daughters. Okay. Meanwhile the sons inherit lands and stuff, or whatever. So I remember my mother gave me this gold chain, the tiniest of them, of course, according to her capacity, but gold chain, I mean, at that age it was like something. So I lost this chain, and it was a big deal, because a gold necklace, a gold whatever, is something that you can take back to the market or whatever. Eventually one day I found it, but it was so squeezed up and kinked up. Of course I was crying and I was trying to untangle this gold chain. I spent time trying to untangle that gold chain. My father saw me, he went, came back, saw me, then he came back and said, do you realize you spent over an hour trying to untangle? I said, I can't do it, you should have helped me since. He said, just find one loose part and follow that path, right? And just pick one loose part and just start untangling everything on that part. Don't go back and forth on it. It didn't make sense, but I picked one and I didn't try to untangle every part, just that one part. And would you know, I untangled that thing. I'm remembering this story because you don't know what it's like listening or having God speak to you. Is there a time ever that you have ever felt, I heard this in my spirit, and lo and behold, that happened? You know, the gift of God to you is just one experience, something that you can call back on, something that you can definitely say, I'm sure it was God's spirit. If you have one, that's all you need. Try and think back to, how did the voice speak to me? I have never heard God's audible voice. I know a lot of people say God says son of man. Okay, for me to be daughter. I have never heard God. Never. If I hear it, I know my husband is playing a prank on me. It's not God has never spoken to me in that manner. But there are times where, is it this or is it that? And then when I hear one, I feel like, yeah, this is peace. And then you know what? I take it back to the word of God. God has said all he ever needs to say in his word. If God doesn't say anything else to you, he has said everything he can ever say in his word. So just read the word. If you read the word often enough, when God speaks to you, it will be like the letterings of the word, just a bit more audible. Just like I can tell you, all 5 guys or 7 guys can be in another room. If my husband speaks in that room,
you will know.
Certainly. When my kids were growing, there would be a lot of children in the crèche, whatever. When I come in, everybody will be blabbering. I know the distinct voice of my son. Expose yourself to the word. Read it in volumes. I told you there was a time I was reading. I tried to still read, but that period, whoa. If you can discipline yourself to the word, when God speaks to you, it's going to be sounding like some part of the Bible. It's going to be like in the version that you like to read. As if God was talking to Eve, but God is talking to you.
Yeah.
There was a time the word of God for me was, because I was working with this business and the business started not to do well. And I was thinking maybe because I started in disobedience. And I was praying. And the words I heard God say was like, lift the child in your hands, for the child will not die. Behold, I have put water for you. Very funny. That was God telling Hagar.
Yeah.
That was God telling Hagar. So as soon as it occurred to me, oh, this is God. I went to the Bible and I started reading. What was Ishmael's story? Despite the fact that he didn't come in through divine providence, God was promising Abraham, I will make him prosperous. I took all of that word and went to my business. Look, I don't care how you came from me. Ishmael was from Abraham's loins, so with a certainty he had to prosper. This business, you came from my brain. I am blessed, so you be. That's how God. That's all. Really, that's it. Full stop.
All right. What a powerful journey we've just walked through. From silence to soul searching, from confusion to clarity. If you've ever felt lost, delayed, or stuck in a life that looks full but feels empty, I hope today's conversation whispers something to your heart. That is not too late and you're not far too gone. Purpose doesn't always shout. Sometimes it begins as a question, a restlessness, or a breakdown. But when we lean in, really lean in, we'll find that everything that we've been searching for is already inside of us, waiting to be awakened. So whether you're in a quiet pause or a noisy race, take a moment this week and ask yourself honestly, who am I really? And what seed in me is waiting to be nurtured? Thank you for joining us. And to every woman listening, I hope you have been able to take 1 or 2 things from what my sister has said. Just know that you're seen, you're called, and you are capable. The world is waiting for your light. Until next time, stay anchored, stay rising, and never stop becoming. Bye for now.